Hi, my name is Keri Gilder. I'm the CEO of Colt Technology Services. We employ about 6,000 people, and this is my Duvet foot. I worked for a company called Hughes Aircraft, and I worked out at a military base. And we lost connection for about 6 seconds, and it was probably the longest 6 seconds of my life. I moved into the consulting arm of Lucent. I always worked in all-male teams. I was usually the only female. Went out to New York, worked in the financial industry, building one of the first trading networks. I moved into sales engineering, then I moved into sales. I actually was forced into sales. And the reason I was forced into sales was because...
How important has mentoring been in your career to get to CEO?
I've had mentors throughout my entire career. Who actually is making the decision on the next job that you want?
What is your why?
I didn't know what my purpose was. And I think most people don't. I wrote my purpose. And my purpose was...
So what's your duvet flip? What's getting you out of bed right now in life?
Che poi gira largo da me, non sai che oramai è finita con te. Tu sei quella che mi fa passare soltanto guai. Chi sei?
So Keri, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, you don't know how excited I've been. When I started following you on LinkedIn, which must have been about a year ago, I started seeing things, and I was like, I would love to have a chat with you. And I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I send the owls? How do I get in? Do I have to send a letter? But we made it happen, and that's the best thing, isn't it? But starting here, tell me a little bit about how work started for you. What was your first proper job? And what did you learn from that job?
I worked for a company called Hughes Aircraft, and it's a defense contractor, and I worked out at a military base. And the military base had every single military faction at the base, and it was probably the most fascinating job that I've ever had. And also maybe the most stressful, because I was responsible for all of the communications on a global basis for all of the military theaters around the world. They call them theaters, military bases around the world.
Wow.
And so if our armed forces were not able to communicate, then they would lose the ability to understand, what their next action would be actually in the field. So it was fascinating, and during that job, I was actually able to launch a satellite into space. It's one of the things that we did at the base, and I remember I was sitting in what they call a glass house, and it's the comms. Have you ever seen War Games?
No, I haven't, but I know.
Okay.
I know. I
It's
can
a very
picture
old
it,
movie, but it's basically this box that's full of glass, and it's all of the communications people like NASA, launching a satellite. And I was responsible for ensuring the comms once the satellite launched into space. And we lost connection to the satellite for about 6 seconds, and it was probably the longest 6 seconds of my life. Because
Wow.
I was responsible for getting that back, and it's a very, very expensive endeavor if you launch and then you can't communicate with the satellite. I was actually in high altitude baby studies because I was born at 10,200 feet in Leadville, Colorado, which is the highest incorporated city in the United States.
Where did you go next? Tell me a little bit about, and why did you leave? Because that seems such a interesting and meaningful and high intelligence job, actually.
Yeah.
Why did you leave?
I love that job to this day. It was so interesting. But as young kids, I was young. I was newly married and just out of university. I didn't have any money. And so I needed to go somewhere else where I could make more money. And at the time, the company Lucent Technologies offered me almost double what I was making. The government jobs are super interesting, but a lot of times they don't pay as well as the commercial kind of space. And so So that's why I moved. And so I did, and when I moved into the consulting arm of Lucent, which basically meant that I was a hired network engineer. I always worked in all male teams. I was usually the only female, and I was ported out to Los Angeles, California. And I was able to basically build the network architecture and then actually build the network for the Los Angeles Times. And all of their, associated printing facilities and all of their facilities that were in the Los Angeles, Orange County area.
And was there any hardships in that job? 'Cause you said you worked in a team full of men. You were the only female. Was that difficult, or was that fine for you? Any young women that are going into a team full of men, what should they be thinking? How should they be dealing with it? Should they talk to me about that?
So the advice that I would give to young women is you wouldn't be there if they didn't believe you were capable of being there. I had to make sure that I sat at the table, and what I saw more often than not is you'd go into a conference room, and if there were other women that were with me, for whatever reason, they'd sit in the chairs that were against the wall and not at the table. And I never understood it. Show up with your brain and show up prepared for whatever meeting that you're in. And if you show up prepared and you have the ability to add value and participate in the conversation, then you should.
I've built a friendship with Amanda Blanc, and she gave me the opportunity to go and shadow her for the day as CEO. I wanted to really understand, okay, how does Amanda structure a day, what works, what's going on, how she motivated teams, how she spoke, what she did in a lift when someone got in, and all that just gave me loads of kind of insight that you don't get by watching someone on a film or something. How important has mentoring been in your career to get to CEO? And do you believe everyone should have a mentor?
I think you need a mentor, a coach, and a sponsor. I think you need all three. And there is a big difference between them. Your mentor is somebody who basically is with you throughout your life. So that may be your mom, it may be a friend, it may be a grandparent, it may be an aunt and uncle, who knows, right? But that mentor is somebody that is going to be with you throughout your career changes. A coach is usually your boss. That's usually who your coach is. And he's going to tell you, he or she is going to tell you how to actually do your job better, and they're going to be on a day-to-day basis, hopefully if they're good, telling you how to improve, and they'll help you to build the skills base that you need. A sponsor is going to get you in the next job. You need to figure out who actually is making the decision on the next job that you want, and actually, is that your boss's boss, if it's your boss's job, or is it, someone who actually is in that circle, but maybe an outside influencer, and how do you actually build relationships with them? I've had mentors throughout my entire career, and usually my mentors, actually all of my mentors, one, have been men, two, they've come naturally. So I've had mentors that have been ex-clients. I've had mentors who are completely out of industry and came through me through a coach that I was paying. I have had mentors that have been family members who I've just had a lot of respect for. Colt, we are the leading digital infrastructure provider in Europe, which means we have fiber pretty much everywhere you can think about it throughout Europe.
What happened next in your career? How did you go from doing what you're doing, the engineering, to actually going in and becoming a manager? When did you become a manager? When did you start leading a team?
I moved from there to another company, and I did consulting in New York. Worked in the financial industry, building one of the first high-speed high-frequency trading networks. I didn't build it, but I audited it from a network perspective to make sure it was hitting the latency. But anyway, after that, my first job going into management was interesting. So I moved into sales engineering, then I moved into sales. I actually was forced into sales. My account manager that I was working with was actually fired for expense fraud. That being said, it provided me an opportunity because I moved to a company called Sienna. We built optical equipment for all of the telecommunications operators around the world. And I was able to get my first experience managing a sales team. I think eventually I would have gone into sales because I was leading the conversations in the meetings, albeit from a technical angle, from an engineering angle. But I was actually building trust with my customers because of that. Being honest about what we could do and not do for them as a vendor made me a good salesperson because they trusted me to be honest with them about, I'm not selling them something that they don't need, and I'm not selling them something that's not going to help them be more successful. I think it was good that I was forced into it because that forced motion put me in a position where actually I moved into something that I was really good at. I think if I would have not have moved into sales, I don't believe I would be a CEO today. I don't believe that I would.
What is your why? What is your purpose and why in life? And as you, in your career and in your everyday life, and as that change, as your why change, can it change? Is it happy to change weekly? What do you say to those individuals whose passion is here, but actually their reality is over here?
I think you have to be happy in the day-to-day. And I think a lot of people look too far forward for happiness. I think you have to find a way to find your own purpose and be happy within your own skin. Like it is inner engineering. I didn't know what my purpose was. And I think most people don't. Right before I became CEO of Colt, I thought I really need to understand, like, what is my purpose? And I actually took over in May of 2020, which was 2 months after COVID broke out. I wrote my purpose. And my purpose was to create extraordinary connections and to do that through health, through harmony, through happiness, and through hope.
And does purpose come from what you're interested in or your vision?
I think you have to think about, where your interests are for sure. Because if you don't find what you're doing interesting, then how's it gonna fuel you to flip that duvet? It's not. If that makes you feel good, then drive towards it. Because if it makes you feel good, you're gonna want to do it more and more and more. And you're going to probably do that well, and then you will bring that network with you to help you be more successful, whether it is your neighbor, your friend, or your friend's mom or dad. If I think about the industry, we are the global connector. Everybody thinks that your mobile phone actually is wireless, but it's actually only wired to the tower, and then from there it's fiber. And our industry is the global connector of pretty much all economies and all people.
And we've only got time for one more question.
Yeah.
This has just been a roller coaster. I've really enjoyed it, and you've made it so easy for me because I've just acted to listen. It's like a mentoring session myself, so thank you. And so what's your duvet flip? What's getting you out of bed right now in life?
Right now, it's really creating that extraordinary connection between technology, climate, and how we actually can engage the communities around the world to make those, continue to make the extraordinary connections with next generation technology, but do it in such a way where actually we're enabling the temperature to go the opposite direction.
Wow. Colt was never on my ambassador list in terms of endorsement, saying to young people, go work at Colt, but you know what? It is now.
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for just being a joy, but also your thoughtfulness, your smartness, your reflection, how you've reflected and how you've brought yourself to this conversation today is probably in the top 3 out of everyone I've had on the show, and I do not say that lightly because I live with authenticity. I'm not going to tell you who the other 2 are. But wow, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.